Hey everybody, it's Joe from greenlightsound.com, and today we're going to take a look at a newly updated plugin from HoRNet plugins, and that is Analog Stage Mark II. This is a plugin that models the console input stage, the preamp, of three different types of consoles. Not specific consoles, but types of consoles. We'll go through what these three different types of consoles are and all the different controls right now, starting with the VU meter on top, standard VU meter calibrated to negative 18 dBFS, where the 0 mark is. We've got an input and output knob for how much we want to drive this console emulation, and the option to link them together, which is great so we don't get extra gain out of it. We've got this mic button here where we can add 20 dB of gain to really overload the circuit and create more distortion. We've got the auto gain button here with the target of how much you want to drive it between 0 and 3 VU. That's nice for automatically hitting the console at a specific level. And the saturation mode right here, this is really where we get the three different console types from. The first one we see here is op amp, and that's kind of from the 80s onward. That's the cleanest one we have. Think SSL console for that one. The second type is transistor. Think 70s. You get a little bit more distortion, so more saturation out of that. And finally, 60s and 50s, we got the tube model for even more saturation and distortion. We're going to jump back to the op amp first. Got a really unique parameter here in the age of the components, so we can simulate the degradation of the console components over time, which will in turn increase saturation, kind of cut out the low end too if you make it really old. We can go anywhere from 0 to 30-year-old components here. We've got a phase invert button down at the bottom, high and low pass filters, which is nice for just general mixing tasks. The modeled analog hiss down here, which is set by default at negative 100 dB, but we can of course change it or completely turn it off. This saturation knob here is really like a headroom knob. It saturates earlier or later depending on the headroom setting we set here. We've got up to 8 different groups. We can group together controls, or we can right-click on any parameter and have all the controls linked. You can tell when you're just setting to group because it's a yellow dot, and when you send to all, it is that blue dot. And that's pretty much it for controls, really simple. So what I did is put this across all of the buses in a mix where I subbed all the drums, all bass, all guitars, all keyboards, and all vocals to 5 different buses and put this on each one to simulate kind of summing through the console. You could of course take that a bit farther and put it on every track of the mix if you want to. It's pretty CPU light, but for this example, I just put it on the buses. The first thing I'd like to do is bypass the plugin completely and just hear the mix without any console emulation. Now I'll engage the plugin. I encourage you to put on some headphones or get in front of some good monitors because it is a very subtle difference. This console emulation stuff is not always a really extreme difference, so listen very closely. We're on the op amp for all the models. Now let's jump down to transistor, and because it's linked for all the instances will change to the transistor model. And then quickly we'll go over to tube. Now I'll quickly go between the three without speaking, starting with op amp again. Now I'd like to just try it out on the drums and play around with some of the parameters, first trying to drive it a little bit harder. Jumping over to transistor and op amp. We can really crush it by pushing this mic plus 20 dB. Turn off that plus 20 dB, bring it back a bit, and let's play with the age. When you push it up all the way, you really lose that low end. Bring it back. Back to op amp. So it can be anything from subtle to pretty extreme distortion. Most common use would be pretty subtle. So check it out. Highly recommended HoRNet Analog Stage Mark II. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, so we can keep you in the loop as to what's coming up next. And I'll see you in the next one.